Шановні
Как,
колеги,
что дальше?
прошу.
Можно.
Добре. Доброго дня, шановні колеги. Е, Перш за все, маю повідомити таку загальну інформацію, що у разі повітряної тривоги всім потрібно пройти у безпечне місце. Шановні колеги, відповідно до наказу Київського національного економічного університету імені Вадима Гетьмана від 22 грудня 2025 року номер 471 АГ утворено спеціалізовану вчену раду з правом прийняття до розгляду та проведення разового захисту дисертації Волохової Анастасії Леонідівни на здобуття ступеня доктора філософії в галузі знань міжнародні відносини за спеціальністю міжнародні економічні відносини. Згідно з даними реєстраційної картки присутності членів Ради, присутній повний склад Ради. Голова Ради, доктор економічних наук, професор Ларіна Ярослава Степанівна, професор кафедри маркетингу імені Анатолія Федоровича Павленка, Київський національний економічний університет імені Вадима Гетьмана. Опоненти. Доктор економічних наук, професор Чукурна Олена Павлівна, декан факультету бізнесу та соціальних комунікацій, професор кафедри менеджменту та маркетингу, Державний університет інтелектуальних технологій і зв'язку, місто Одеса. Присутня Олена Павлівна?
Так, присутня. Доброго дня.
Так, добрий день. Другий опонент – доктор економічних наук, професор Громова Ольга Євгенівна, професор кафедри маркетингу та реклами, Вінницький торговельно-економічний інститут Державного торговельно-економічного університету. Ольга
Вітаю,
Євгенівна?
колеги. Вітаю.
Так, дякую. Рецензенти – доктор економічних наук, професор Цимбал Людмила Іванівна, професор кафедри міжнародної економіки, Київський національний економічний університет імені Вадима Гетьмана.
Присутня, доброго дня, вітаю.
Добрий день. І кандидат економічних наук, доцент Шевченко Олена Леонідівна, доцент кафедри маркетингу імені Павленка, Київський національний економічний університет імені Вадима Гетьмана. Олена Леонідівна присутня. Так. На сьогоднішньому засіданні з 5 членів Ради присутні 5, отже, кворум є, і ми можемо починати засідання. Зазначимо, що засідання спеціалізованої вченої ради проходить з використанням засобів відеозв'язку із забезпеченням трансляції захисту в режимі реального часу, посилання на яке розміщене на офіційному вебсайті університету відповідно пункту 25 Постанови Кабінету міністрів України номер 44 від 12 січня 2022 року. Порядок присудження ступеня доктора філософії та скасування рішення разової спеціалізованої вченої ради закладу вищої освіти, наукової установи про присудження ступеня доктора філософії. На порядку денному питання захисту дисертації здобувача ступеня доктора філософії Київського національного економічного університету імені Вадима Гетьмана Волохової Анастасії Леонідівни з галузі знань міжнародні відносини за спеціальністю 292 міжнародні економічні відносини. Анастасія Леонідівна присутня.
Присутня, доброго дня.
Так. Тема дисертації – управління корпоративною ідентичністю бренду багатонаціональних підприємств. Затверджена вченою радою факультету міжнародної економіки і менеджменту ДВНЗ Київський національний економічний університет імені Вадима Гетьмана від 26 травня 2021 року, протокол номер 10. Науковий керівник, доктор економічних наук, доцент, професор кафедри міжнародного менеджменту Київського національного економічного університету імені Вадима Гетьмана Лук'яненко Ольга Дмитрівна. Так. Шановні колеги, чи будуть зауваження чи пропозиції до порядку денного? Немає. Хто за те, щоб затвердити порядок денний? Дякую. За, проти? Немає. Утримались? Немає. Приймається одноголосно. Волохова Анастасія Леонідівна народилася 1 серпня 1985 року у місті Києві, Україна. У 2007 році закінчила ДВНЗ КНЕУ імені Вадима Гетьмана за спеціальністю міжнародна економіка та здобула кваліфікацію магістра. З квітня 2021 року аспірантка заочної форми навчання кафедри міжнародного менеджменту КНЕУ імені Вадима Гетьмана. Документи подані до спеціалізованої вченої ради у повному обсязі та відповідають вимогам пунктів 13 та 22 порядку присудження ступеня доктора філософії та скасування рішення разової спеціалізованої вченої ради закладу вищої освіти, наукової установи про присудження ступеня доктора філософії, затвердженого постановою Кабінету міністрів України від 12.01.2022 року номер 44 та положення про організацію атестації здобувачів вищої освіти ступеня доктора філософії у Київському національному економічному університеті імені Вадима Гетьмана. Анастасія Леонідівна, якою мовою буде проходити захист?
Англійською, будь ласка.
Дякую. За погодженням із здобувачем захист буде відбуватися англійською мовою. Чи є запитання щодо поданих здобувачем документів? Немає. До здобувача? Немає. Слово надається здобувачеві для викладу основних положень дисертаційної роботи. Будь ласка.
Дозвольте розширити екран. Добрий день, шановні члени одноразової спеціалізованої ради. З вашого дозволу буду продовжувати мою доповідь англійською мовою. Good afternoon, esteemed specialized council, esteemed head and esteemed opponents and reviewers. I would like to thank you all for being present here today. And I'm glad to be presenting to your attention the major outlines of my PhD dissertation thesis under the topic Corporate Brand Identity Management in Multinational Enterprises within the specialty 292 International Economic Relations. And with your permission, I would start. Okay. Please do let me know if you all see the slides.
Everything is okay. Let's start.
Okay, great. So, under the modern international business conditions of globalization, digital connectivity, and the rising sustainability expectations, modern businesses are forced to act under totally, completely new realities, where corporate brand identity has evolved from the, let's say, communicative mechanism, visual mechanism, into the central focal point of articulating values, differentiating companies, and building stakeholder trust. And for the multinational enterprises, this matter rises especially sharp as they are forced to function under the diverse cultural institutional environments where for them corporate social responsibility does not only become a tool of differentiation, but a key source of legitimacy across those diverse cultural environments that they operate within. And at the same time, CBI should be conceptualized in this regard as a multidimensional construct integrating strategy, operational culture, communication, and external validation. And at the same time, the growing societal emphasis on corporate social responsibility positions this responsibility as a critical driver of competitiveness and credibility. And it's the intersection of this CBI and CSR constructs that constitute the strategically significant domain that shapes how multinational enterprises present themselves, act, and engage on global level. Having said that, though, despite of the growing interest toward the subjects in existing CBI literature, CSR is most often treated as a reputational or communication tool rather than a source of core element of identity embedded in strategy, organizational culture, and stakeholder relations. And in return, CSR research rarely examines how responsibility shapes brand identity, focusing instead primarily on performance outcomes, compliance, and legitimacy. And even though in the multinational enterprises literature, academics acknowledge the importance of intangible resources and legitimacy, yet it does not operationalize CSR-driven CBI as a measurable construct linked to international competitiveness. And this results in a conceptual and empirical gap that there is no integrated framework examining how CSR-driven CBI is formed, enacted, and validated within multinational enterprises. And the absence of such framework is particularly critical for MNEs that must sustain their legitimacy across diverse institutional contexts while aligning identity with the culturally heterogeneous stakeholders. Thus, without such comprehensive CSR-driven CBI framework and model, multinational enterprises risk identity inconsistencies, weaken stakeholder trust, and erosion of their competitive advantage on global markets in the long run. With this in mind, we formulated the aim of the research as to develop and empirically validate a comprehensive model of CBI in multinational enterprises driven by corporate social responsibility and designed to enhance competitiveness, legitimacy, and sustainable development in international markets. And in order to achieve this research aim, we've developed and achieved certain research objectives. First of all, we had to theoretically, foundationally conceptualize, investigate the corporate brand identity and combine it, systematize it with key scholarly approaches to corporate social responsibility. At the same time, we had to study the relationship between CSR-driven CBI and international competitiveness through such factors as culture, psychological, communicative, and semiotic factors shaping CBI in cross-border contexts. And with this in mind, we've developed a system of macroeconomic studies and micro level research that helped us to triangulate and investigate all those theoretical points through the empirical validation and into the managerial practical recommendations. Therefore, the object of the research was formulated as the process of corporate brand identity formation and management in multinational enterprises under conditions of globalization and increasing demands for corporate social responsibility. And the subject of the research comprises the theoretical, methodological, and practical foundations of CSR-driven corporate brand identity in multinational enterprises, including its internal drivers, external legitimacy mechanisms, performance outcomes, and impact on international competitiveness. Talking of the methodology of our research, it employs mixed method design based on triangulation, where on the macro level, econometric methods are applied to analyze the relationship between CSR engagement and export performance of manufacturing M&Es. And on the micro level, an embedded case study with ethnographic elements is employed to examine the CSR-driven corporate brand identity of the Gulfcraft Co. WLL company. And to summarize the scientific novelty of the research, it lies in the development of the new theoretical models, the refinement of methodological tool, and the further advancement of corporate brand identity concept through integration of CSR as a unifying logic influencing the competitiveness and legitimacy of multinational enterprises. At the same time, we will present each scientific novelty as we process with our presentation, following the logic of our research from theoretical models, theoretical foundations, through empirical validations, and into practical recommendations. So what is corporate brand identity? First of all, the concept has evolved from a primarily focus on visual symbols to a strategic and organizational construct. And contemporary CBI research spans multiple academic disciplines, including marketing, organizational studies, corporate communication, psychology, and international management. At the same time, despite its conceptual richness, theoretical approaches to corporate brand identity remain fragmented across disciplines. And that's why we felt the necessity to formulate, as a first scientific result of our study, to formulate the corporate brand identity definition and consequently define it as a system of values, symbols, and practices that reflect the strategic intent and cultural foundations of enterprises while shaping its external image and stakeholder perceptions. And for multinational enterprises, the CBI operates within conditions of cultural, institutional, and regulatorily heterogeneity. And that's why the MNEs usually face a dual challenge of maintaining global consistency, at the same time following and enabling adaptation to local markets. And that's how the CBI here acts as a systematic mechanism to help MNEs to address those issues. And this creates the need for integrated framework that examines how CBI is formed, enacted, and sustained across borders. And here is where corporate social responsibility emerges as a critical missing link capable of unifying strategy and organizational culture, all the process, communication, and legitimacy within one M&E identity management. As the first theoretical model and one of the most fundamental ones is the structural model of core CBI components, which establishes the structural foundation of corporate brand identity in multinational enterprises, where strategic intent spans through all the activities of the company, from organizational culture and symbolic representation, communication and behavior, through the mechanisms of authenticity and consistency as a result. And that model became the foundation of the next theoretical result I would like to present, is the three-dimensional CBI model that integrates interdisciplinary framework that reconceptualizes corporate brand identity and M&Es as a strategic tool, as behavioral construct, and as a dynamic process that span through the dimensions of communication, strategy, and organizational dimension. And this model, as no other, shows how CBI acts as a living organism. And moving a little bit outside the internal model into a wider ecosystem, we present the proposed global CSR-driven corporate brand identity framework that conceptualizes CSR as a unifying logic, integrating stakeholder expectations, institutional pressures, and network interactions into internally embedded CBI identity practices, thereby strengthening the legitimacy and the competitiveness of multinational enterprises on the global markets when they act outside. A few words about sectoral relevance and why we have focused on manufacturing industry specifically within our research. First of all, manufacturing is a core pillar of the global economy, underpinning innovation, trade, employment, and functioning of value chain, very complex value chains. At the same time, it also operates within complex and fragmental global networks, which makes identity, legitimacy, and all those issues of responsibility strategically critical. And at the same time, in this specific sector, companies face increasing pressure in terms of their CSR positions and responsibility due to sheer environmental intensity, labor-related risks, and globalized supply chains. And of course, all this represents an industry with very high stakes, at the same time analytically revealing for examining CSR-driven corporate brand identity. And I would now move to the macro level study. The research logic behind it was to address an existing empirical gap, which was the limited availability of systematic empirical studies examining the relationship between CSR and export performance. And we faced a dual need here, dual challenge. First, to internally analyze the internal firm level characteristics, and at the same time include macroeconomic and institutional context. and the focus on manufacturing, specifically manufacturing M&Es as a key actor of this research was also intentional. And therefore, the aim of the macro-level study was to empirically test the impact of CSR on export performance of international manufacturing companies while accounting for both corporate level and national level factors. As a main hypothesis, we underlined the strong positive connection between the CSR and companies' export performance through the share of sales of companies' foreign sales. And at the same time, we used control variables such as R&D intensity, company size, company age, the level of economic development of the home country, and its export share in GDP of the same home country. All those variables were derived from existing academic literature that was emphasizing the importance of those factors. So the sampling process was a purposive multi-stage sampling strategy where only international manufacturing corporations were included from selected suitable manufacturing sectors. And the selection criteria included, first of all, data availability and the robustness of international operations of those companies. And as a final sample, 71 international manufacturing corporations were selected for the study. The initial descriptive statistic indicated a high export orientation of the sampled companies, as well as the high relatively homogeneous level of CSR. And it also reveals the substantial variability in company size across the sample. The strong correlation was revealed while we were doing correlation analysis between CSR and foreign sales ratio, as well as the share of exports in the country's GDP and companies' FSR. At the same time, the company size appeared not to be at any relevance at all and was excluded from the final regression model. And so the final regression model statistically proved that CSR has a positive and statistically significant effect on foreign sales ratio, as well as share of export in GDP also has very strong and positive effect on export performance. While the rest of the factors, R&D intensity, companies' age, GDP per capita, they were not statistically significant, but at the same time, theoretically very relevant. And as a final result, indeed, we proved the important role of CSR in companies' export performance, and provided empirical evidence of the role of CSR as a strategic driver of international competitiveness, establishing a foundation for a micro-level analysis of CSR as a core element of corporate brand identity. And hence we proceed with a micro-level analysis for which we have selected as embedded single case study of Gulf Crafts company based in Qatar. And this logic helped us to deeply investigate such questions as how and why when we were studying, scrutinizing the corporate brand identity within the organization. So its qualitative core consists of semi-structural interviews with key internal stakeholders and selected external partners. And the quantitative component included internal employee survey designed to measure perceptions of CSR integration and CBI consistency within employees. At the same time, we analyzed a mass of documentary and visual materials, including internal documentations, reports, presentations, certifications, website and social media accounts, project records, all this over the past 6 years. And we would also emphasize the ethnographically informed element of the research embedded within this case study. So a few words about Gulf Crafts. It's a Doha-based design and manufacturing company with nearly 25 years of experience delivering in expertise in project management, design, executing project installations, and post-installation services. It is a vertically integrated company that under one roof provides such wide services within the 5 distinct business lines, which are signage and wayfinding, space branding, bespoke gifts, awards and accessories, architectural elements, and a number of specialized services. And this structure, the vertical build of golf crafts helps us a lot and brings a very important point of why golf crafts can indeed be considered as a valid a single case study for a dissertation research. So first of all, of course, it is a multinational enterprise operation with operations in Qatar and across the region, including its official registered branch in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We call it Sign Cross by Gulf Crafts, and project execution beyond the home country. At the same time, the company demonstrates the high level of international embeddedness, especially through its strategic partnerships, for example, its ambassadorships with the Belgian company Levision, other cross-border supply networks, and export activities. At the same time, it also exhibits a strong construct relevance to the study, as it is specialized in B2B project-based branding. It characterizes by CSR-oriented design and manufacturing and sustainability-driven innovations. At the same time, we would like to emphasize the rich empirical data that we were able to obtain through the multi-source evidence and triangulation. And here the researcher's insider position is methodologically managed through reflexivity and cross-validation. And triangulation is a key, as I have already mentioned. To operationalize the CSR-CBI relations, we structured the KPIs into a distinct framework that served a dual purpose. First of all, to become a research instrument in its surveys and interviews, for example, and at the same time be a managerial diagnostic tool. So the KPI framework is grounded in the CBI core components model and the global CSR-driven CBI framework, both of which we have mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. And the final KPIs were grouped into 7 interrelated dimensions. The structured internal employee survey was developed based on this final KPI framework. Employees from different departments, organizational roles, and length of tenure, and also nature of stakeholder interactions took part in this survey. And all in all, the survey had in the purpose to assess internal perceptions of CSR integration and consistency of corporate brand identity within the organization. And the initial descriptive statistics indicated the strong performance across all 7 KPI dimensions. To formally visualize, let's say, priorities and the importance of those KPIs, we used importance performance framework, where performance was derived from the employee survey and the importance was assessed based on management interviews and observational insight. And this gave us the possibility to indicate which of the KPIs needed to be maintained and reinforced, which needed more help and extra focus. The further statistical results showed no statistically significant differences between across employee groups, and this confirms internal alignment of CBI. At the same time, the strong associations between sustainability and brand effectiveness was found, as well as leadership and organizational culture importance for the build of trust and reputation outside the company. At the same time, the Kendall coefficients showed no full consensus among employees regarding KPI prioritization, which only shows us the multidimensional nature of CBI. At the same time, we have analyzed golf crafts qualitatively based on our earlier mentioned CBI core components model. And again, it showed that strategic intent went through the whole organization, through the culture, symbolic representation, communication, and behavior, and resulted in authenticity, consistency, and finally in the company trust and very, very strong reputation. And to move from a conceptual understanding of CBI to its empirical analysis and a managerial application, the dissertation proposes a system of CBI performance dimensions, which is differentiation, consistency, authenticity, and relevance. And this this helps us to theoretically substantiate for corporate identity performance dimensions and enable operationalization of abstract identity attributes and link CBI to strategic effectiveness, legitimacy, and competitiveness of multinational enterprises. At the same time, we propose a step-by-step roadmap for the formation and implementation of CSR-driven CBI, integrating strategic objectives, organizational transformation, and identity outcomes in M&I. Again, from strategic intent to evaluation, and the loop continues. And of course, we couldn't skip the importance of principles of sustainable design, as they are a conceptual foundation for the materialization of CSR-driven CBI in a company's manufacturing, spatial, and visual solutions. And I wish we would have had more time to stop on each of those aspects separately. And later on, we take these sustainability principles and operationalize them into in the operational flow, propose the mechanism of operationalizing sustainable design and manufacturing as a tool for integrating CSR values into the everyday management, production, and organizational practice of multinational enterprises, again, starting from strategy and all the way to the feedback loops. And moving outside the internal system to the wider ecosystem of the organization, we developed an ecosystem-based model of CSR-driven CBI that captures the interaction of strategic, organizational, communicative, and institutional elements of CBI within the multi-level environment of multinational enterprises. And finally, we propose the core model of CSR-driven corporate brand identity as the central scientific outcome of this dissertation research, which integrates theoretical foundations, macro and micro level empirical findings, and practical mechanisms for managing corporate brand identity in multinational enterprises within internal and external drivers of legitimacy and their impact on performance outcomes. And the practical role of this model, first of all, it provides a strategic approach to integrating CSR into strategic management, organizational culture, communications, and becomes a real practical tool. And at the same time, on academic level, it integrates fragmented theoretical approaches to CBI, CSR, international business into a unified conceptual framework, including theories from different disciplines, and really helps to organize a system of all the key concepts discussed in the dissertation. And finally, to speak of practical significance of the dissertational research as such, it lies in the applicability of the development theoretical models, methodological instruments, and empirical findings to the practice of multinational enterprises, industry organizations, and public policy institutions, with the aim of integrating CSR into CBI management and strengthening the sustainable competitiveness and legitimacy of M&Es. At the same time, the results of the dissertation have undergone practical approbation and implementation, confirming their applied value and relevance to the real business environments. First of all, of course, I'm talking about Gulf Crafts, the case study of the dissertation, but also of their partners, different event organizers, as well as the practical and academic community who were present when the results of the dissertation was discussed during various academic and practical conferences. On this note, I would like to thank you very much for your attention. Thank you again for being here despite all the practical difficulties. And that would conclude my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anastasia Leonidovna. The report is finished. What questions will be asked of the applicant regarding its content? Please, who can start? Olena
I
Pavlovna,
have,
please, your
yes,
question.
I start. I have a few questions for for Anastasia Leonidovna. The question number one is contemporary corporate practice, corporate social responsibility is often approached mainly as a communicational instrument or a reputation signal directed at external stakeholders. Such an approach frequently emphasizes symbolic initiatives, public reporting, or brand messaging, while paying less attention to the internal organization process through which responsibility is actually enacted. At the same time, your dissertation consistently argues for a different perspective. Positioning corporative social responsibility is an internally embedded logic that shapes corporate brand identity, also through organizational behavior and decision-making process across the enterprises. In this context, in your view, what are the main risks for multinational enterprises if corporative social responsibility is treated mainly as an external branding narrative rather than as an internally embedded identity mechanism?
Thank you very much, Elena Pavlovna, for these important questions. Indeed, the risk here is quite serious, and that's hence the dissertation was written. First of all, they would risk no internal alignment, meaning what? For example, when there is no alignment within the company, the employees would not be able to project the major values, the major essence of the company to their stakeholders. They would not know how to act, how to react, what is important, what is not important. That's why this internal alignment would definitely be missing. At the same time, the risk is also inconsistency within the different touch points when company operates on different markets with different stakeholders. Definitely, when the alignment is not there, everybody does whatever they think is best. Finally, the brand loses its integrity within different touch points. And also, the very important risk is the decrease of strategic durability in long term. So even if in short run they could probably win and reinforce their brand identity without the alignment on some core positive characteristics, in the long run, definitely they will not be able to build stakeholder trust, to build reputation, or even to maintain their day-to-day operations effectively. Because again, the coordination and the alignment is the key. Thank you.
Olena Pavlovna, have you any questions to Anastasia?
Thank you for your answer. And the next question I have in the dissertation, corporate brand identity is exempt primarily is an internally grounded organizational and managerial construct shaped through strategy, culture, leadership, and everyday practice rather than through mass communication alone. In parallel, the research adopts a B2B perspective where brand meaning is typically not formed instantaneously, but emerges over time through repeated interaction, project-based collaboration, and accumulation of shared experience between partners. This make the alignment between internal identity and external perception particularly critical for sustained long-term relationship and trust. How do you see the relationship between internal identity, coherence, and external brand meaning evolving in long-term B2B relationships where brand perception is often formed through repeated interaction rather than mass communication?
Thank you very much for your question. Indeed, a very valuable insight and a sort of continuation of our previous discussion. As again, in the long run, what matters in B2B sector is primarily the relations. So it's not so much mass market oriented. It's day-to-day interactions, communications, the proven actions that gradually build the trust of external stakeholders. Either we are talking about partners, about clients, about government, non-governmental organization, anything. So here again, it's extremely important to know that our employees, our ambassadors, they on their everyday interaction, touch point by touch point, matter by matter, project by project, they project those core values. They project if we are talking about CSR-driven corporate brand identity, the real action. So it's not just what the partners or any other external stakeholders would see on social media or on the website communicated. It's what they would see enacted through the ambassadors of the company, through the employees, through the management. Through everyday action. And that's what will build the B2B relations in the long term. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your answer. Olena Pavlovna, do you consider the answer satisfactory?
I'm satisfaction with answered, Anastasia Leonidovna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's continue. Please, Olga Evgenievna, what are your questions, please?
First of all, I would like to thank you for sharing information about your scientific research. I have two questions. The first one is, the dissertation presents a multi-level empirical study combining macroeconomic analysis with micro-level organization research, including employee surveys and qualitative data from case studies. This mixed approach often reveals patterns, correlations, or deviations that could not have been predicted at the outset of the study. Were there any unexpected findings in the process of the study, the data, both at the micro level and employee responses and at the macro level in international economic studies, and how did you interpret them? I'll be thankful for your answer.
Thank you very much for this valuable question. Indeed, very interesting, and the information changed definitely as the research progresses. Because first, during the initial theoretical screening, we identified certain hypotheses, certain assumptions we had in mind. But definitely, for example, during the macro level research, we have identified that the size of the company would play an important role in the expert performance, even though on this stage the academic points of view were quite dispersed. Some considered that the company size would matter positively, would have a positive effect due to the economy of scales. Others would say that it would add an extra layer of complications and would reduce the positive effect. At the same time, our research showed that the size of the company didn't matter at all, and that's why we deleted it from the final regression. Because what mattered was the real action of the company, what they do about the CSR, as well as under which conditions, external conditions of the home country they operate, whether this country provides them enough background for their successful export activity. For example, companies' age or even the GDP per capita of the home country didn't play that important role statistically, even though still theoretically it was very significant But yes, I would say on macro level, it was this total irrelevance of the company size, which I think it's something very positive. I really interpreted it as once I found it, I've realized like indeed it reinforces the whole idea of CSR-driven corporate brand identity. And on the micro level, most probably it was the total absence of any agreement between employees as to which of the 7 KPIs are the most important. So each group of employees, for example, communicating with different kind of stakeholders, because we have sales personnel, we have designers, we have production, we have management, all of them, they have different day-to-day interactions with the stakeholders. So each of those groups, they rated the importance of KPIs differently, which for me shows that this is the nature of living corporate brand identity. In multinational enterprises, it's extremely complex. It's living, evolving, constantly changing organisms that must have a stable core, but at the same time, it will definitely be reimprinted in a different way depending on a specific context. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I have one more question. In the third part of the dissertation, you formulate a set of practical recommendations aimed at supporting the implementation of CSR-driven corporate brand identity in multinational enterprises. At the same time, multinational companies operate across culturally diverse, institutionally heterogeneous, economically differentiated environments, which may affect the applicability of specific managerial practices across regions. Which of these recommendations, in your opinion, are the most universal for multinational enterprises operating in the culturally diverse regions?
Thank you very much. A very inspirational question. Indeed, for me, it's that the CSR must be a core. Or having said that, any kind of corporate brand identity must have a core. The core that will remain stable regardless the cultural environment, regardless the institutional environment, regardless the growth or any other directions of the company. So there should be a strategic intent that would embed this core into each and every part of company's activity. At the same time, there should be a very well-established governance logic. This, first of all, comes from leadership. So leadership must really explain all this core to the employees. And again, internal alignment, as I've mentioned before, I will not get tired of mentioning it. It's extremely important that every level of stakeholders within the company understands and lives this core, this strategic intent. And that's the only way how it will result in authenticity, in trust and enhanced reputation at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Anastasia. Do you find the answer appropriate?
Yes, I'm satisfied with the answers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then Людмила Ivánівна,
Thank you very
what are
much.
your questions?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anastasia, for choosing a very interesting topic of for this research topic and for this paperwork. And if you allow me, I have 2 questions for dissertation. First of all, in your paperwork, we can see excellence level of research company and good example using case study methods. And in this context, I just have a question. Single case design raise questions concerning the transferability of findings beyond the immediate imperial context. But how would you assess the extent to which the result of your case study can be applied to other regions or industries or maybe other companies, and which type of limitations maybe should be taken into account when interpreting and extending these findings? First of all, and my second question, if you allow me, in the literature of international production and global value chains, concepts such as original equipment manufacturers or original design manufacturing are often used to explain different organizational and contractual models of international manufacturing, as well as their implications for value creation, control, and competitiveness. These concepts are particularly relevant in analysis of multinational enterprises production strategies and cross-border industrial organization. But I have a question. Could you clarify why these models were not explicitly addressed in the dissertation, and to what extent, in your view, they relate to the research topic and the proposed of CSR-driven corporate brand identity framework?
Thank you, Ludmila Ivanina, for this definitely very practical and serious questions, if I may put it that way. Regarding the applicability of the case study to different cases, different concepts, definitely always the single case study is a limitation on its own. Because it only views one particular company and specifically specific institutional and cultural conditions of the country and or countries it operates within. At the same time, for us, it was a deliberate choice, as we really wanted to go in depth to analyze the deeper layers of the mechanisms involved in this internal activity. At the same time, it gave us analytical richness that later on could be applied as a logic, as an analytical logic could be applied to different cases, to different sectors or different companies. So again, the core principles definitely would stay stable, but the transferability as mechanisms will go to different cases. And regarding the second question on OEMs and ODMs, of course, first of all, the dissertation was had an aim to analyze the internal mechanisms, let's say the qualitative logic behind the corporate social responsibility and corporate brand identity. Yes, it did analyze it on the case of manufacturing industry for the reasons being that it's an extremely relative domain, as I mentioned during our presentation. At the same time, we did not have in mind to focus to put a lot of emphasis on the manufacturing process. That's why we did not discuss, for the scope of the dissertation, we didn't discuss deliberately anything on OEMs or ODMs. At the same time, talking of Gulfcraft as a case study, its activity is highly bespoke and project-based, meaning they don't have standardized production. They act with a totally different logic. That's why we felt that it's somehow outside the scope of the dissertation research, especially within the microeconomic case study. But definitely, it would be very, very interesting to apply the mechanism that we found through our case study in the dissertation research in general, and going back to your first question at the same time, to apply to a diverse manufacturing environment that would act within the complex supply chains of this standardized production. So thank you very much for your direction. It will be definitely very interesting to investigate.
Okay, Ludmila Ivanina, do you consider the answer satisfactory?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now, Olena Leonidovna Shevchenko, please, what are your questions?
Thank you, Anastasia, for your interesting and comprehensive presentation. I have a few questions. The question number one. In your dissertation, corporate brand identity is analyzed as a value-based system that is simultaneously stable in its core and dynamic in its practical implementation. You also emphasize that this identity is sustained through internal alignment, organizational culture, and everyday managerial and operational practices. At the same time, rapid growth and internationalization tend to increase organizational complexity and place pressure on internal alignment and consistency. Against this background, how can multinational enterprises preserve the coherence, authenticity, and credibility of a CSR-driven corporate brand identity during periods of accelerated growth and international expansion, according to your findings? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elena Leonidovna, for this important practical question. It's really, really valid, especially nowadays that all the companies, they try to grow, progress, and this rapid globalization of companies, excuse me, is really could be a very big threat to the company itself. As always, we must keep in mind that the growth must be carefully calculated, carefully strategically implemented based on what our company stands for. For example, in the case of Gulf Crafts, it has been postponing its international expansion, and still now it's quite conservative in terms of going internationally, because it does not want to lose its core value, which is quality, first of all, and then this CSR-related innovation part. So because it's very difficult not only to transfer the technologies, but also to transfer the expertise of people abroad. That's why for them it was a deliberate decision not to overgrow rapidly. But if we have to talk about rapid growth and rapid globalization, of course, first of all, it's again clear strategic intent. Everything must be very clearly defined. Why are we doing there? Where are we moving? What are we trying to achieve with it? Internal coordination is a must, because the moment the company grows, suddenly the system is no longer there, new employees come, and if the core employee values are not transferred to them properly, especially when we are talking about diverse cultural environment. So each employee will have its own or her own cultural background, expectations. So it's a really complicated process to maintain internal alignment. And of course, we have to always think about adaptive connectivity. We do have to adapt to the environment we are going to the host country. Obviously, it will have its own governmental regulations, cultural expectations, some peculiarities of functioning of the partners in there. At the same time, again, we have to find this fine line between staying true to our core, staying true to what we do, and adapt to the expectations of the local environment. So thank you very much.
And question two, in studies that lie intersection of international business and marketing, the country of origin effect is traditionally considered an important explanatory factor shaping brand perception, trust, and market positioning. This concept has been widely used to explain how national association influence consumer and partner evaluations, particularly in international contexts. In many branding frameworks, country of origin cues are assumed to function as cognitive shortcuts that reduce uncertainty and signal quality in cross-border exchanges. As a result, they often occupy a central place in analysis of international brand strategy and market entry. Given that your dissertation integrates international business logic with corporate branding and marketing perspectives, Could you clarify why the country of origin effect was not emphasized as a central analytical dimension in your research? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very interesting question indeed, and quite personal to me, because usually country of origin effect is something that I would investigate in greater depth. But for the scope of this specific dissertation, we finally decided to leave it aside. We do mention it indirectly when we are talking about different cultural environment, when we are talking about corporate ambassadorship, corporate diplomacy. At the same time, we felt that since we are talking about B2B environment, for B2B, again, the corporate diplomacy, for example, would have a much stronger effect comparing to a country of origin effect that is traditionally viewed more of B2C concept oriented on mass markets. So when we are talking about interactions, we felt that country of origin effect was not of a primary importance. Again, we did mention it indirectly, but we didn't want to emphasize on it fully. And this was also proven by the results of the macro study when we found out the conditions of home country of the company did not really play a role in their export performance. First of all, of course, it's through GDP per capita. But there we were trying to, let's say, GDP per capita represented the richness of the country, the conditions within this home country. They did not really play an important role. And then I wanted to share with you with the occasion, a couple of days ago, during the Web Summit here in Doha, I've heard something that really set in my mind, that the modern globalization trends are such that, for example, we no longer have Silicon Valley as a prerogative of the US, because there are so many Asian countries, so many Eastern European countries that are not less strong than the US in technology, for example. So at the same time, we could say of the perceptions of the new generations, Gen Z and Alpha, they no longer live with the same categories of country of origin effect, which is probably a good thing. We want to believe in the long term. And that's why the priorities shift a bit. And thank you very much for your question.
Thank you for your answer. And Lena Leonidovna, do you find the answer appropriate?
Yes, I am fully satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I also have two questions for you. The first question is simple. What are the main components of corporate brand identity? And are there any differences between process and principles of formation CBI for multinational companies and domestic companies?
Okay, so of course the major component is we start with strategic intent. That is the head of everything, is the head of our CBI. And then it goes through each part of the everyday activity of the company. We are talking about cultural construct, we are talking about internal alignment, we are talking about communication and behavior, and all the and of course a visual spatial representation, the in plain words what we see, the logo, the tone of voice, the architecture, the colors, everything that we actually can sense with our four senses, even the touch, the smell as well. So all those are elements of corporate brand identity. Traditionally, probably the sensorial part of what we see, what we read, what we hear, and how we touch the company was the traditional approach. At the same time, now the focus has shifted into the internal alignment and the core values. And all those elements, they result in authenticity and the proper representation of corporate brand identity as a whole. And the difference between the multinational and domestic companies, Definitely multinational enterprises would need more thought on what they should standardize, what they should adaptize, and this thin line of how to keep their core values set. For domestic companies, they have the luxury of operating under the rigid rules they're already familiar with. They have established partnerships, contacts, most probably with any external stakeholders, be it government or the partners, suppliers. They have the luxury to use their local supply chain, for example, which let's say in Qatar is extremely important. It's a very, very important moment for the government that local companies are using local supply chains, local suppliers, the community, the support of the community is extremely strong. Of course, when the enterprise starts operating abroad, becomes a multinational enterprise, they have to adapt and to evolve with the international partners. They will have to change their supply chains. They will have to change definitely to the institutional and cultural environment to adapt to that. So it's much more, in our view, it's much more complex, the operation abroad comparing to the domestic operations. Thank you very much for your question.
Thank you for your answer. And my second question is the next. How is CBI related to the market performance of the companies, of multinational companies? And how can we prove this connection?
Again, one attempt that we did was our macro study, the macro level. Of course, we tried to identify what would be this indicator that could show the success of companies functioning on international level. And that's why we've selected export and its foreign sales ratio indicator, because it was something that we could find information on. And at the same time, in international business, it's a very valid indicator. Having said that, CBI still remains quite a qualitative concept. There are researchers that try measuring corporate identity through, for example, trust. Through goodwill, through the value of the brand, through reputation standards. I believe every study should be tailor-made according to the specific objective, and definitely with the development of new technologies, I'm sure there will be other new ways to assess maybe our brain, how we feel about the brand, because when we say that it's intangible, it means that it's a lot about what we feel and think, and sometimes we cannot project it in material values. We cannot even fully project it in our surveys. So that's why we need a deeper discussions, a deeper understanding. Maybe in the future, the technology will find the way to measure what we feel.
I
It's
agree
a
with you.
very relevant question. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your answer. I am satisfied. Thank you. Are there any more people who would like to ask the applicant a question? There is no. Maybe someone from the audience? No. Dear colleagues, let's begin the official discussion of the results of the dissertation research. Our esteemed opponents and reviewers have provided feedback, which is published electronically and is publicly available on the official website of the university. We comply with all requirements regarding the main part of the feedback and comments. Anyone who wishes can read them independently. Therefore, without voicing the speeches of official opponents and reviewers, we ask you, Anastasia Leonidovna, to begin responding to the remarks of the esteemed Doctor of Economic Sciences, Professor Chukurna Olena Pavlovna.
Thank you very much. I would like to sincerely thank Professor Chukurna Olena Pavlovna for the attentive reading of the dissertation and for well-grounded, constructive remarks, which I fully acknowledge and highly appreciate. First, the choice of an in-depth case study was a deliberate methodological decision determined by the object, the subject, and the research objectives of the dissertation. And this approach allowed for a detailed examination of internal mechanisms of CSR-oriented CBI in terms of its formation in a multinational B2B context and ensured conceptual relevance and analytical validity. At the same time, I fully agree that the qualitative findings obtained through the case study open clear opportunities for extending the comparative dimensions of the research. And the inclusion of additional cases or cross-cultural examples in future studies would enable a deeper understanding of communication and identification practices of CSR-oriented CBI across different international environments and present a logical continuation of the proposed research framework. I also acknowledge the relevance of the remarks concerning terminology unification, particularly given the bilingual nature of the dissertation. While the core conceptual categories were kept, of course, the further harmonization in terminology should be very, very important, especially in view of the consequent, hopefully, publications of the dissertation. With regard to the differentiation of communication channels, I indeed agree that this represents a promising direction for future research. This dissertation intentionally emphasizes the integrative nature of internal and external communications as foundation of CSR-driven CBI, drawing on communicative and semiotic perspectives. And the further detailing of the roles of formal and informal channels, as well as digital platforms in the construction of brand authenticity, would enhance and analyze analytically depthen the model and contribute to a more nuanced understanding of identity reproduction process. And overall, I consider those remarks to be of constructive structure, highly important, and advisory in nature. I want to believe that they do not diminish the scientific value of the dissertation, rather they confirm the conceptual depth and highlight its significant potential for further development within the fields of corporate brand identity, CSR, and international business. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anastasia Leonidovna. Elena Pavlovna, are you satisfied with the answer?
Thank you very much, Anastasia Leonidovna. I'm completely satisfied by your answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dear applicant, please respond to the comments of Doctor of Economic Sciences, Professor Olga Evgenievna Gromova.
I would like to sincerely thank esteemed Professor Gromova Olga Evgenievna for the careful assessment of the dissertation and for the constructive and well-grounded remarks, which I fully acknowledge and appreciate greatly. First of all, the macroeconomic analysis presented in the dissertation was designed in accordance with the defined research objectives and data availability, ensuring methodological correctness and interpretability of the results. At the same time, I fully agree that the application of dynamic approaches such as panel data models or time series analysis would allow for more precise examination of lagged effect, long-term effects of CSR investments on export performance and represents a highly relevant direction for the future research. I also acknowledge the importance of sectoral differentiation in analyzing the relationship between CSR and export outcomes. The focus of manufacturing multinational enterprises was a deliberate methodological choice, justified, first of all, by the role of the production, innovation, and tangible value creation in export competitiveness. At the same time, further disaggregation by industry in the future studies could indeed reveal sector-specific configurations of the relation between CSR, innovation, and competitiveness across different segments of international trade. With regard to digital transformation, I fully agree that the proposed model has significant potential for further development in this direction. And although technological factors were not positioned as the central analytical dimension of the dissertation, the integration of digitalization process, the platform-based interactions, and social networks would definitely substantially enhance the explanatory power of the contemporary relevance of the model for export-oriented multinational enterprises. I would also like to acknowledge the value of incorporating indicators of perceived CSR among international clients and partners. Combining objective macroeconomic indicators with perception-based measures would allow for a more comprehensive understanding of how CSR-oriented CBI influences competitiveness and export behavior across different markets. And this direction constitutes definitely a logical extension of the current research framework. Overall, I would like to consider these remarks extremely important and advisory in nature, definitely very, very positive for the future research in this direction. I want to believe that they do not diminish the scientific value of the dissertation, rather confirm the further methodological soundness and highlight the substantial potential for further research. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Olga Evgenievna, are you satisfied with the answer?
Yes, thank you. Absolutely satisfied.
Thank you. Dear applicant, I would like to ask you to respond to the comments of the reviewers, Doctor of Economic Sciences Professor Lyudmila Ivanivna Tsimbal, and candidate of Economic Sciences Associate Professor Olena Leonidovna Shevchenko. Please.
Thank you very much, esteemed reviewers. I really appreciate your input, your time and attention that you dedicated to this dissertation. I would first like to respond to the remarks of Professor Tsimbal Lyudmila Ivanivna. Talking of the integration of macro and micro level analysis in the dissertation, it was a deliberate methodological decision determined by the research objectives of the study. And within the network, the primary goal was to establish a stable conceptual empirical foundation for understanding CSR-oriented CBI in multinational enterprises. At the same time, I fully agree that strengthening the dynamic dimensions of CBI identity, particularly when we are talking about the evolution under technological change, digitalization and transformation of global value chains, all this constitutes a highly relevant direction for further research. Rather than being explored as an independent empirical trajectory within the scope of the dissertation, we outlined it indirectly as a CBI. The CBI is constructed as a living organism. And I emphasized it already through the presentation quite a bit of time. CBI is a living organism, so constantly adapting to the change. Regarding the role of innovation and digital technologies, it was addressed indirectly through the case studies, particularly in relations to sustainable manufacturing, modularity and process optimization, and a more explicit analysis of digital platforms and Industry 4.0 and 5.0 mechanisms would indeed allow for a deeper understanding of how CSR values are operationalized and aligned with day-to-day organizational practices that represent a national continuation of the research. The focus on manufacturing multinational enterprises in the macroeconomic analysis was logically determined by the research design, and nevertheless extending the proposed model to service-based or digital multinational enterprises would enhance its institutional versatility and contribute to a broader understanding of CSR-oriented identity transfer across different global business models. I also acknowledge the relevance of further detailed managerial architecture involved in the implementation of CSR-oriented CBI. And while this dissertation emphasizes strategic and organizational mechanisms, additional analysis of leadership, coordination, and functional roles would further enrich and the understanding of internal identity alignment process. With this, I thank Professor Tsimbal Lyudmila Ivanivna, and I would like to proceed with the remarks of esteemed reviewer, Professor Shevchenko Olena Leonidovna. First of all, the focus on internal mechanisms of corporate brand identity information was a deliberate methodological choice, again, based on the research objectives of the dissertation, and the line with the contemporary identity theory, corporate brand identity, in particular in its CSR-oriented form, is first constructed, institutionalized, and aligned internally before being interpreted by external stakeholders. So at the same time, I fully agree that the deeper engagement with the external perspective, including the analysis of how different stakeholder groups interpret CSR-oriented brand identity in real communication touchpoints, represents a highly relative and promising direction for further research. Also, the inclusion of behavioral economics and consumer behavior theories, despite the fact that the focus of the dissertation was on B2B sector, is theoretically justified, as these approaches explain universal cognitive and psychological mechanisms that also operate in organizational and professional decision-making contexts. A comparative analysis of CSR-driven CBI in B2B and B2C environments, nevertheless, would allow for a clear differentiation of emotional engagement and perception dynamics, and is also considered a logical continuation of the research. So thank you very much for a very valid point. The multi-component KPI system proposed in the dissertation was developed as a comprehensive analytical framework, and while its full implementation may require significant organizational resources, its modular structure allows for adaptation to a different level of brand maturity and organizational capacity, without diminishing its scientific practical value at the same time. The suggestion to supplement a model with a managerial checklist is a very practical and ready-to-go suggestion. This element was not included due to the defense scope of the dissertation, but at the same time, it represents a natural extension of the proposed model. And finally, I acknowledge the importance of further strengthening on terminology consistency across dissertation, especially when we talk about such interchangeable, very often interchangeable points as ecosystem and network, for example. So definitely the further unification of it throughout the dissertation would enhance the overall result, especially when we are talking about further replicability of research results. Thank you very much once again to the esteemed reviewers for their highly appreciated remarks. I do believe they are of extremely important value for the dissertation. I hope they are of advisory nature and do not diminish the validity of the research results. Thank you very much.
Dear reviewers, are you satisfied with answers of Anastasia Leonidovna?
Yes, I'm satisfied. Thank you very much.
Okay. Olena Leonidovna?
I'm completely satisfied with the answers.
Thank you. The response to the comments is over. Are there any questions for the applicant? No. Then we move on to the discussion. Who would like to express your point of view on the dissertation work, the speech, and the responses to the comments? Okay. The floor is given to Chukurna Olena Pavlovna, our esteemed opponent.
Thank you very much. I will start discussion. Overall, the dissertation research make a positive impression. The relevance of the dissertation research topic of Anastasia Leonidovna dedicated to the formation and management of corporate brand identity in multinational enterprises with a focus on corporate social responsibility is due to profound changes in the method of communication between business and society. The scientific novelty of the dissertation lies in a systematic and interdisciplinary phenomenon that is formed and reproduced on the basis of corporative social responsibility. The proposed theoretical models are supported by empirical data and applied analysis. The practical significance of the obtained results is evidenced by their implementation in corporate practice. Elements of corporate social responsibility oriented corporate brand identity model, the KPI system, and the sustainable design approach were applied in the activities of Gulf Crafts Company, Qatar. The dissertation research, Anastasia Leonidovna, is a completed independent scientific work that provides comprehensive and systematic examination of the problem of forming and managing corporate brand identity in multinational enterprises based on corporate social responsibility. The dissertation is completed work, contains summarized scientific results, meets all current requirements for dissertation for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Specialty 2092 International Economic Relation, in the field of Knowledge 29 International Relation, and Volохова Anastasia Leonidovna deserved to be awarded the scientific degree of Doctor of Philosophy. It's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, esteemed Elena Pavlovna. Now the floor is given to our opponent, Olga Evgenievna Gromova. Please.
First of all, I would like to express my gratitude for the opportunity to review the results of dissertation by Volохova Anastasia. The work is relevant and interesting, and the results of the dissertation are not purely academic, but also have practical applications. In her work, Volохova Anastasia focused on the study of the role of corporate brand identity and corporate social responsibility in shaping the long-term strategic advantages of companies. The practical recommendations formulated in the dissertation are not of a practical importance of managers of multinational enterprises, institutional associations, and public policy bodies. They can be used in the formation of sustainable development strategies, corporate brand management, the development of international partnerships network, and the development of policies to support responsible businesses. The overall conclusion is the dissertation by Volохova Anastasia meets all the established requirements for scientific research, and the author Volохova Anastasia deserves to be awarded to the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Specialty 292 International Economic Relations. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. And now the floor is given to reviewer, Tsimbal Людмила Ivánivna.
Thank you very much, Yaroslava. It's Anastasia, and I just want to say that the submitted scientific paper addresses the relevant issue of management corporate brand identity of multinational enterprises in the context of globalization. Intensifying international competition and the digital transformation of the global economy. The chosen topic is timely and has significant theoretical and practical relevance for international economics, strategic management, and brand management. The relevance of the study is driven by the growing importance of intangible assets in the value structure of multinational company, as well as by the need to ensure a coherent corporate brand identity while operating in diverse institutional, cultural, and socioeconomic environments. The author demonstrated that effective corporate identity management is a key factor in building stakeholder trust and achieving long-term competitiveness in global markets. Notable strength of the paper is its clear structure, appropriate use of academic terminology, and a systemic approach to the analysis of corporate brand identity. The study successfully combines theoretical concepts developed by a leading international and domestic scholar with the practical aspects of multinational enterprises operations. The scientific novelty of the research lies in the future development of theoretical provisions regarding the mechanism of corporate brand identity management in a multinational context, as well as in identifying key tools for aligning global corporate identity at global and local levels. The practical significance of the study consists in the applicability of the findings and recommendation to the achievement of the international companies, particularly in the development of corporate brand strategies. At the same time, certain recommendations of an advisory nature may be noted. In particular, it would be appropriate to expand the empirical base of the study through the use of quantitative research methods or a more detailed comparative analysis of case studies of multinational enterprises from different regions of the world. Overall, the scientific paper, Corporate Brand Identity Management of Multinational Enterprises, is a complete and logically structured study, meets the requirements set for academic works of corresponding level, and deserves a positive evaluation. And I will support of this paperwork and vote yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Людмила Іванівна. And now the floor is given to the reviewer, Olena Leonidівна Shevchenko.
Thank you. Nowadays, brand and branding are actively developing, creating opportunities for the formation of strategic advantages of economic entities, both in domestic and foreign markets. The brand is turning into an integrated tool capable of combining various components. The influence of each contributes to the strengthening of consumer perception and the behavior. Modern transformation process in the marketing and international economic environment determines the condition under which the brand platforms performs not only the role of communicational tool, but also becomes the basic carrier of values, behavioral guidelines, and social responsibility of the company. The dissertation of Volохова A makes a significant theoretical contribution to the development of modern approaches of branding, offering a new perspective on corporate brand identity as an integrated system of values and practices, rather than just a set of visual communication elements. This approach changes the idea of building trust, loyalty, and brand authenticity, taking into account the growing sensitivity of consumer to social responsibility of business. An important contribution is the idea of integrating CSR, corporate social responsibility, into the conceptual framework of corporate brand identity. This opens up new opportunities for analyzing brands as morally and socially meaningful entities where the behavior of the company is no less important than its communication strategy. The models proposed by the author expand the tools of branding research, allowing to combine internal organizational process with the formation of perceptions of external audience. Worth noting that the dissertation research has conceptual integrity, clear internal logic, and harmonious combination of theoretical analysis with empirical observations. It was emphasizing the author's ability to combine approaches from branding, corporate communications, behavioral sciences, management, and international economics into a single analytical framework. Therefore, the dissertation research of Anastasia Leonidovna Volохova meets the requirements of the order of the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine, and its author deserves to be awarded the scientific degree of Doctor of Philosophy in the field of knowledge 29, international relations, and specialty 29, international economic relations. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Olena Leonidovna. And now I want to add some words to our discussion. In characterizing the dissertation research of Anastasia Volokova, I would first like to emphasize its high theoretical and methodological level. In particular, the author analyzed a substantial body of international and Ukrainian academic sources to define the essence of corporate brand identity concept. Of particular interest are a structural model of the key components of corporate brand identity and the 3D ecosystem model of CBI developed by the author. The author proved the necessity of integrating corporate social responsibility into CBI and clearly demonstrates that CSR shapes the essence of the brand and influences brand behavior. I believe that the integration of CSR into the theory of corporate brand identity is one of the most important achievements of the theoretical section of the dissertation. As a positive feature of this research, I would also like to highlight the considerable attention paid to research methodology and its interdisciplinary nature, drawing on international marketing, strategic brand management, sustainable development, and organizational studies. The methodology developed by the author successfully combines in-depth qualitative analysis with quantitative methods, as well as research conducted at both the external, international, and internal corporate levels. In the analytical section of the dissertation, the author approached the formation of the statistical sample with great care, applying clear criteria and selecting 71 international companies from various industries for the study. A large volume of data was processed using statistical methods, and a linear regression model was constructed. As a result, the author's hypothesis regarding the positive impact of CSR on companies' export performance was confirmed. It should be emphasized that in the third chapter of the dissertation, the author's developments were brought to an applied level, ensuring effective managerial impact for a special company by integrating strategic intent, organizational culture, and leadership in the corporate identity management system. Alongside the theoretical, methodological, and practical significance of the dissertation and its scientific novelty, it is also worth noting the author's confident defense, mastery of the material, and high standard of academic communication. In conclusion, I would like to state that Anastasia Volokhova's dissertation meets all the requirements for PhD thesis, and its author fully deserves to be awarded this academic degree. I fully support this work and will vote in favor. Thank you very much. And now our discussion is finished. And let's continue in Ukrainian. Шановні колеги, нам необхідно обговорити проєкт рішення Ради щодо присудження ступеня доктора філософії. Проєкт рішення був завчасно всім розданий та надісланий на електронні пошти. Ви могли з ним ознайомитись. Які будуть пропозиції щодо проєкту?
Якщо дозволите, я пропоную взяти за основу даний проект.
Дякую, Людмила Іванівна. Добре, є пропозиція прийняти проєкт рішення за основу. Хто за таку пропозицію, прошу голосувати. Дякую. Хто проти? Немає. Хто утримався? Немає. Рішення прийнято одноголосно. Якщо більше бажаючих виступати немає, пропоную перейти до процедури відкритого голосування щодо присудження або відмови у присудженні ступеня доктора філософії Волохові Анастасії Леонідівні. Прошу висловити свою позицію і голосуємо поіменно. Професор Чукурна Олена Павлівна.
Так, я згодна. Анастасія Леонидівна проявила себе як досвідчена, професійна дослідниця. Ви велика умниця, я хотіла вам сказати особисто, ви вільно володієте англійською мовою, це відчувається, як ви добре почуваєте себе, да, так, якби так, натурально, естественно, як то кажуть в Одесі. Тому, в принципі, дисертація, таке позитивне враження в мене від дисертаційного дослідження, тому що в цьому аспекті дійсно я вже давно займаюся проблемами брендингу, і в такому аспекті це дійсно новаторська така робота, коли брендинг розглядається з точки зору все ж таки міждисциплінарного підходу, тому що зазвичай ми в маркетингу розглядали все ж таки атрибути традиційні такі підходи, традиційні атрибути брендингу. Тому робота вдалася, в роботі використані математичні моделі, статистичний апарат, грамотно використана і підтверджена взагалі поставлена гіпотеза, і за допомогою методів дослідження вона була обґрунтована та підтверджена. Це також я звернула на це увагу, і це дуже така сильна сторона роботи, тому що методологія дисертаційного дослідження все ж таки витримана і побудована грамотно. Тому вважаю, що робота вносить вагомий такий вклад в розвиток теорії брендингу і буде використана на практиці. Ми будемо враховувати ваші здобутки в подальшому в своїх дослідженнях і в дослідженнях наших аспірантів. Тому я вітаю вас. Дуже таке велике враження на мене здійснила ваш захист. Тому тільки за.
Дякую.
Підтримую.
Дякую, Олена Павлівна, дякую. Шановний опонент, Громова Ольга Євгенівна, будь ласка.
Так, я теж підтримую, я голосую за. В прагненні пані Анастасії отримані наукового ступеня доктора філософії. Теж в мене неймовірно позитивне враження від того матеріалу, який ми сьогодні прослухали, від володіння цим матеріалом, від відповідей на зауваження опонентів, рецензентів. Тема надзвичайно актуальна, і в контексті продовження своєї колеги-опонента я хочу сказати, що я вже взяла частину матеріалу Анастасії, посилаюсь на нього в своєму вже наступному дослідженні. Тому щиро вам дякую за такий вклад в розвиток нашої науки. Дякую, підтримую.
І, будь ласка, Ольга Євгенівна, як підсумок, ви голосуєте за. Дякую. Шановні наші рецензенти, будь ласка, Цимбал Людмила Іванівна.
Щиро дякую, і в доповнення теж такі міркування. По-перше, одразу позначимо, Анастасія Леонідівна, щиро дякую за такий цікавий вибір теми. І я однозначно підтримую цю роботу і голосую за, я це вже озвучила, але в доповнення ще якраз в доповнення до Олени Павлівни, яка сказала, що це з точки зору класичного маркетингу частіше розглядається. Ми якраз як міжнародники розглядаємо трішки з іншої сторони. І тут ми з вами отримали такий цікавий досвід. По-перше, це компанія B2B. Не так часто ми бачимо інсайдерську інформацію зсередини B2B компанії. Так що, Анастасія, щиро вам дякуємо за те, що ви надали нам можливість все-таки подивитися на такий досвід. Це перше. І друге, навіть у нас дуже багато захистів по якимсь міжнародним компаніям, по якимось регіонам. І от якраз ваш регіон, він попадає далеко не так часто. І оцей досвід, він є таким надзвичайно цікавим, особливо враховуючи те, що цей регіон є одним із таких амбасадорів виставкової діяльності. Як би це не було, це такі досить... Дуже багато виставок проходить, але чомусь вколо наших наукових інтересів це потрапляє не так часто. Тому теж хочу подякувати вам за те, що ви нас долучили до інсайту не тільки B2B компаній, а ще й B2B компаній в такому специфічному і дуже цікавому регіоні, тому що це дійсно такий центр міжнародної виставкової діяльності. І в завершення голосую за, підтримую роботу, щиро дякую.
Дякую, Людмила Іванівна. Прошу, Олена Леонідівна.
Я приєднуюсь до усіх позитивних вражень стосовно даної роботи. Дякуємо, Анастасія, за таке змістовне, конструктивне, системне дослідження. Тому що дійсно на сьогодні тематика брендингу, розвитку брендів і здебільшого корпоративного бренду, який стоїть на перетині різних сфер діяльності, всього того, що робить компанія, є надзвичайно актуально і пропонує такий свіжий погляд на те, ваше бачення, власне, на цю проблематику. Я теж для себе дуже багато цікавих фактів взяла до уваги, тому що мені це цікаво. До речі, проблема саме корпоративних брендів, вона не так глибоко досліджена, і тут ще є де, власне, розвернутися, і дуже дуже цінним є ті ваші наробки, які представлені. І дійсно хочу теж виразити своє таке особисте враження, велика молодець. І я розумію, що ви провели таку шалену роботу, гарно тримаєтесь, не дивлячись на всі такі, можливо, якісь моменти, які у нас є в країні. Да? Все сталося, все відбулося, тому я тільки позитивно оцінюю, звісно, що я голосую за.
Дякую, Олена Леонідівна. Від себе теж хочу сказати, що я дуже підтримую цю роботу. Вона мені дуже сподобалась, дуже цікаво було читати. Вважаю, що це взагалі так, знаєте, робота орієнтована на майбутнє. І дійсно тут ще є велике поле для подальших досліджень. Я думаю, що Анастасія Леонідівна на цьому і не зупиниться. У мене таке враження. Окрема подяка за захист, дуже цікавий, володіння матеріалом, володіння мовою на найвищому рівні. Це чудово, тому я підтримую і голосую за. Таким чином, шановні колеги, ми можемо оголосити результати. За 5 членів спеціалізованої ради, проти немає. Voted for 5, voted against none. Дозвольте зачитати рішення Спеціалізованої вченої ради про присудження ступеня доктора філософії. Спеціалізована вчена рада PhD 11595 Київського національного економічного університету імені Вадима Гетьмана, місто Київ, прийняла рішення про присудження ступеня доктора філософії, галузі знань, міжнародні відносини на підставі прилюдного захисту дисертації, управління корпоративною ідентичністю, бренду багатонаціональних підприємств за спеціальністю 292 «Міжнародні економічні відносини» 10 лютого 2026 року. Волохова Анастасія Леонідівна, 1985 року народження, громадянка України, освіта вища. Закінчила у 2007 році Державний вищий навчальний заклад Київський національний економічний університет імені Вадима Гетьмана за спеціальністю міжнародна економіка та здобула кваліфікацію магістра. З квітня 2021 року аспірантка заочної форми навчання кафедри міжнародного менеджменту Київського національного економічного університету імені Вадима Гетьмана. Дисертацію виконано у Київському національному економічному університеті імені Вадима Гетьмана, Міністерства освіти і науки України, місто Київ. Науковий керівник Лук'яненко Ольга Дмитрівна, доктор економічних наук, доцент, професор кафедри міжнародного менеджменту Київського національного економічного університету імені Вадима Гетьмана. Здобувач має 12 наукових праць, одну в періодичному науковому виданні, проіндексованому в базах даних Scopus та або Web of Science, 3 у наукових фахових виданнях України, 8 в інших виданнях. У дискусії взяли участь голова і члени спеціалізованої вченої ради та присутні на захисті фахівці. Результати відкритого голосування. За 5 членів ради, проти немає. На підставі результатів відкритого голосування спеціалізована вчена рада присуджує Волоховій Анастасії Леонідівні ступінь доктора філософії з галузі знань міжнародні відносини за спеціальністю 292 міжнародні економічні відносини. Based on the results of an open vote, the Specialized Academic Council awards Anastasia Leonidovna Volokova the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in the field of knowledge, international relations, in specialty 292 International Economic Relations. Дозвольте привітати Анастасію Леонідівну з успішним захистом дисертації на здобуття ступеня доктора філософії. Бажаю вам подальших успіхів в науковій роботі, в вашій практичній діяльності за фахом. Якщо у вас є бажання, будь ласка, прикінцеве слово.
Будь ласка, дякую дуже, Ярослава Степанівна. Я хотіла подякувати вам особисто за весь час, увагу, яку ви приділили моїй роботі і сьогодні, і в цілому. Особисто хотіла подякувати також шановним опонентам Олена Павлівна і Ольга Євгенівна. Я знаю, наскільки важко в нинішніх умовах працювати, і тому для мене особливо безцінно, що ви змогли знайти час, знайти сили, можливість працювати з моєю роботою. Це для мене неймовірно цінно. Також хочу подякувати шановним рецензентам Людмила Іванівна, Олена Леонідівна. Ваша підтримка була надзвичайно важлива для мене і ще з самого першого захисту на кафедрі. Це надало мені більше сил, більше натхнення. Також надзвичайно вам подяка за те, що все ж таки все змогли в таких складних умовах. Хоча я розумію, і при відключенні світла, і інтернету це було надзвичайно. Тому мені здається, це особливо цінно. Завжди дисертаційні роботи вони такі це складний процес. А в наших, на жаль, реаліях сьогодення це ще й такий просто виживальний інстинкт. Дуже дуже вам дякую. Дякую за позитивні відгуки. Це мене надихає на подальшу роботу, але ще й говорить мені про те, що в принципі все було не дарма. Я коли обирала цю тему, це була для мене дуже персонально цінна ідея. Як я казала і в дисертації, я її жила. Тобто це так от моє ядро, я в принципі повністю можу себе автентизувати з темою, з тим, що я написала, що написано, що ми рекомендували в дисертації. Це по-перше. А по-друге, дійсно ваші коментарі надихають на те, що можна працювати далі, і слід працювати далі. І дай Бог, є надія і у нас, і в нашій країні. Звичайно, я хотіла б подякувати своєму науковому керівнику Лук'яненко Ольгі Дмитрівні за підтримку, яку вона надавала. А також особливу подяку хочу відправити завідувачу кафедри міжнародного менеджменту Бурмаці Миколі Олексійовичу за його неоцінену підтримку. І також завідувачу відділу докторантури аспірантури Дворник Ірині Вікторовні. Без них, мабуть, нічого б не сталося, тому що дійсно їх підтримка була неоціненна. Особлива подяка, звичайно, ректору Київського національного економічного університету Лук'яненку Дмитру Григоровичу. Мабуть, перш за все, за можливість писати цю дисертацію в Україні, в моєму рідному вузі. Для мене це було надзвичайно важливо. Щиро йому за це вдячність. І, звичайно ж, на персональному рівні дуже хотіла подякувати моїй родині в Києві. Вибачте. Вони моя опора, вони моя мотивація, вони мій приклад. І моїй родині тут в Катарі, які розуміли багато, чому мама досить часто не з ними. Велике їм за це дякую. А також окремо хотіла подякувати голові компанії Gulfcraft, пану Віктору Деєрменджану, за його розуміння, за те, що він дав мені можливість виконати цю роботу, а також за те, що він поділився зі мною своїм неоціненним досвідом. Це було дуже важливо. Дякую всім, хто долучився до цього процесу, і, мабуть, окрема подяка, мабуть, стоячи нашим хлопцям та дівчатам, які або поклали своє життя, або ще захищають нашу країну і дали нам таку можливість сьогодні бути присутніми тут і взагалі розмовляти про наукову діяльність. Дуже дякую.
Дякуємо, Анастасія Леонідівна, за ці теплі слова. Шановні колеги, дякую вам. І з вашого дозволу я можу вважати засідання разової спеціалізованої вченої ради завершеним. Дуже дякую, що ви змогли приєднатися, взяти участь. Бажаю вам мирного неба, гарного дня і перемоги нашій країні. Дякую.
Дякуємо.
Дякуємо.
Дякуємо, колеги. Дуже зворушливо було. Я навіть, я дуже рада, що я брала участь в такому засіданні. І, Анастасія, я вас ще раз вітаю. Ви гідна цього звання. Ви дійсно пройшли цей шлях такий важкий. це завжди зростання, якісне зростання, внутрішнє, духовне зростання. Дисертація завжди це не просто так в житті. Це для чогось, це така наступна сходинка. І я бажаю, щоб все у вас і в подальшому на науковому, так би мовити, шляху на були, ну, ви рухалися, ви, в принципі, дуже потенціальна, на мій погляд, така здобувачка. Я бажаю вам успіху, ви молодець. Дуже-дуже
Дякую щиро.
зворушливо було таке. Ви така чуйна людина. Я ще коли з вами спілкувалася в процесі, я зрозуміла, що ви дуже чуйна. У вас такі якості, навіть людські такі, дуже гарні. Не тільки як науковці, але й як людина. Я бажаю вам щиро успіхів в подальшому науковому зростанні. І мені також я згодна з Ярославою
Степанівна.
Степанівна, вибачте, що
Чого все
у вас є потенціал для подальшого росту, це в принципі відчувається. Тому успіхів вам і вітаю щиро.
Дуже дякую.
Шановні колеги, ще хтось хоче висловити побажання, вже такі більш
Якщо
неформальні.
дозволите, таке міркування по, скажімо так, відповідь на відповідь Анастасії, якщо дозволите. Анастасія, з одного боку, ви кажете, що нам певною мірою з цими відключеннями і з тим режимом, в якому ми живемо, складно писати відгуки на дисертації, читати їх, але з іншого боку, я хочу вам сказати з свого власного досвіду, що от якраз у такі моменти, коли ти отримаєш дисертацію, коли ти занурюєшся в цю дисертацію, ти навпаки відволікаєшся від тих реалій, в яких ти є, від відключення. Ну, відключили світло, ну, почитаємо дисертацію собі спокійненько, як то кажеться, і немає інтернету, нічого, дисертація є. Це навпаки такі моменти, які повертають, особисто для мене це слугувало таким якимсь якорем, де можна було просто відволіктися на таку якісну, гарну роботу, почитати, попрацювати, своє задоволення, якщо дозволите, не завдяки, а всупереч тим обставинам, в яких ми знаходимося. Тому такі якісні роботи, вони навпаки повертають і мотивують.
Вам дякую, це
Дякую.
для мене неймовірно важливо.
Якщо дозволите, колеги, я теж вже приєднаюсь до такої неформальної нашої розмови. Хочу сказати, що от Настіні слова, вони відгукнулися в кожному з нас, в серцях всіх українців, тому що це нас болить, це про кожного з нас і це про нашу силу, про нашу незламність. Наш фронт свій. Да? Ми не можемо говорити, що ми робимо щось менше чи більше, ми працюємо на своєму полі. Я бажаю, щоб кожен з нас і Настя сьогодні працювали на перемогу Україні в такі складні часи. Якщо чесно, я прослизилася так само, тому що воно торкнулося мого серця. Настя, я бажаю вам, вашій родині сил, кожному з нас, да, не покладати руки, бути сильними і йти до перемоги. Дякую.
Олена Леонідівна, теж скажете, можливо, пару слів? Вас не
Звісно.
чути. Ага. Вже добре, вже є.
Я приєднуюся до всіх слів, теж пропустила їх через себе. Анастасія, я хочу вас привітати, тому що я розумію, що сьогодні для вас дуже важливий день, і, мабуть, дуже було багато роботи. І я розумію, що ви зараз відчуваєте. Хочу побажати вам здоров'я і здобутків не лише в вашому професійному сенсі, хоча це безумовно, а теж хочу побажати вам щастя особистого, сімейного, щастя вашій родині, радості, миру, добра, здійснення ваших мрій. Ви дійсно дуже чуйна, емпатична людина, було приємно з вами працювати. Хай вам щастить у житті. Ну, а нам усім теж, ми теж сподіваємося, що будемо жити в мирі, в злагоді, і якось ми це все переживемо. Дякую всім, було теж мені дуже приємно бути учасником і членом даної спеціалізованої ради. Всім добра і Настю ще раз вітаю.
Так, дякую всім, шановні колеги. Було дуже приємно співпрацювати. Сподіваюся і на подальшу співпрацю. Всім гарного дня і будемо, напевно, виходити з конференції. У мене вже
Безпеки
майже заряджений
і
телефон, на якому
якнайшвидшого
я
миру.
тримаюся.
Дякуємо.
Дякую вам. Так. Всього доброго, до побачення.
Гарного дня, до
Гарного
побачення.
дня, до побачення.
Так, до побачення.